against authoritarianism in favor of the peace and prosperity that ensures a better future for everyone.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what democracy you're talking about since you were so worried about people being skeptic about it.
Welcome back to Canada-Wide News, and that is a hilarious clip from this guy Damon. He does these clips where he takes world leaders and he says what everyone's thinking. And the guy's in like Norway, of all places, and he criticizes everyone. Let's watch the rest of it, and then we're going to see Danila Smith that sort of encourages Trudeau to call an election. And then we'll look at the Nanos polls because it's getting pretty tight with Trudeau and Pierre. So let's watch that.
We'll say that in every democracy around the world, we are seeing a rising movements of skepticism about democracy itself. Citizens cannot take their democracies for granted, and that means standing for democracy against authoritarianism in favor of the peace and prosperity that ensures a better future for everyone.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what democracy you're talking about since you were so worried about people being skeptic about it. Because as far as reality is concerned, your government and many other democratic governments are controlling the flow of information on what their citizens can and cannot know about. You're expanding government regulation of online speech. You frame people protesting your government and your mandates as violent extremists. You froze their bank accounts. I mean, you call every criticism against you hate and hate speech. None of that is democracy. That's authoritarianism 101. So again, I'm not sure what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh, that's hilarious. He is saying what everyone is thinking. Everyone, and no one is telling Trudeau to step down. You know, that's what we need. We need like world leaders to stand up. I don't care who it is. The guy in Germany should do it too. I can't remember his name. Not Klaus, the guy, the prime minister or whatever he is in Germany. He should stand up and say something too, because he's pissed at Trudeau for not allowing the liquefied natural gas to come through. Now, let's back to Danila Smith talking about calling an election and that Trudeau should do it. Let's have a listen at that.
It can be co-ed, and we want to make sure that we're embracing all of those options.
Let's stay with the Prime Minister and the relationship that he has with both you and with your province, because there are times when you've surprised people, not necessarily me, but you've surprised people by working closely with them, including on the health accord. You obviously needed to sign a health deal, and you came to an agreement that both sides could work with. Maybe not everyone's not happy about all points, but you found agreement. And you've done that several times, but still, Alberta seems to be a prime target for this Prime Minister and this government. Do you feel that Alberta is under attack from Ottawa far too often by Justin Trudeau and his administration?
Well, I wanted to give the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt that he had just made a decision to put Stephen Guilbeault in the Environment Ministry, and that he wanted to give him the latitude to bring policy forward. But a leader also has to know that when their minister is going off in a direction that is harmful to the country, harmful to national unity, when they're proposing policies that are unachievable and impractical, when they're creating that kind of division, it's the job of a leader to step in and say, whoa, hold on a minute. There might be something that I need to do some course correction on here.
Stephen Guilbeault, the guy that climbed the CN Tower, and he also climbed the Premier's office in British Columbia, which I didn't, when it came out, wasn't really aware of it back then. But this guy goes against the charter, and when the lawyer or the court or the judge comes back and says that he's wrong, then he goes and gets a check, and he has to pay back like Rebel Media. That's our money. He's like breaking the law, using tax money to fight it, and then he's using tax money to pay for his mistake. This guy, Stephen Guilbeault, is a horrible, horrible leader.
I've been giving the Prime Minister the benefit of the doubt that he understands that a net zero power grid in Alberta is not achievable, that he understands that a 2030 emissions target that's too aggressive is actually a production cap, that he has no business trying to put forward a policy to have zero emissions vehicles sold 100% by 2035. When his minister said that we're not building roads anymore after everybody's going through the effort of trying to invest in zero emissions vehicles. Like, at what point does the Prime Minister step in and say that his Minister of Environment has gone completely off the rails? And so that's what I've been encouraging him to do, to come to the table, to work collaboratively with those of us who want to find a solution. I've put forward an emissions reduction and energy development plan that would get us to carbon neutrality.
You know, I'm liking Danila Smith a lot more too, and I often wonder with Pierre, like, he's the one guy that can get out of this mess. And even if he's not around for whatever reason, because if he's gone, who's going to come in? Because there's still technically a year and a half left. That I could see that Melissa Lasman or Leslyn Lewis or that guy Gordon Brock, that guy, and there's a couple of other people that could step in. I'd love Daniel. She should run for Prime Minister too if Pierre, something happens, because you never know with Trudeau what magically can happen and screw everything up, because he's just like that. Let's keep going back.
By 2050. That's our target. That's the target of our major trading partners. That's the target we should be working forward together. But we keep having an environment minister that is just pulling things out of thin air that can't be implemented. And I think he has to be accountable for that.
He's not just a minister who is picking fights with Alberta. It's every province. I mean, on Bill C-69, it was every single province joined in the court challenge to Bill C-69, because this is a minister that definitely goes too far on C-69, on other issues. He seems to be picking fights at a time when the Prime Minister doesn't need more headaches. Look at the polling numbers. He needs friends. He needs wins. And you don't get that by fighting with everyone.
And, you know, Stephen Guilbeault doing this, whatever, no admissions by 2030 or 2050 or whatever it is, you know, BMW and Ford are making a hydrogen engine now. What happens if they make a hydrogen engine, and I don't know how the whole thing works, but what if that is the replacement of electrical vehicles? Like, technology is the one thing that will solve those greenhouse gases or emissions with 1.5% emissions. But, you know, the winglets on airplanes, the little curves on the side, they actually reduce fuel by 14% for every plane in the world when that came around. That actually lowered greenhouse gases. That's what you want, technology to solve it, not taxing people so they don't want to go drive a car and move around and move goods and services. Like, that really is wrong, what Stephen Guilbeault is doing. This is the data from Nanos right here, preferred PM. I'll slide it up here. This is the Nanos data right here, and the preferred Prime Minister. You can see here in blue is Pierre. 36% of Canadians want to have Pierre, 19% Trudeau, 17% Jagmeet Singh. There's such a close line now between Jagmeet and Trudeau that once the next polling comes out, we're going to see it where NDP is number 2. Maybe this is the time for Jagmeet to say, you know what? I need to call the election. It would be smart for his party. Will he do it? He should. He really should just call the election. Let's look at the party power index here. Let's just scroll up. See 55% Conservatives, 45% NDP, 42% Liberal. So this is already saying that the NDP and Liberals are now switching over, that they are the ones that are in the lead. And the next one here to look at, which was the issue. Now let's go down to it here. This chart, the issue tracker. And right now, the biggest issue is the yellow, inflation. And that's the most important issue in Canada right now. And what's interesting about this is that the least important is deficit. And wouldn't you think they're related? And you see in this chart here, only after 2022, January 2022, magically inflation just popped up. But inflation and debt are the same. The more debt, the more inflation. That what they did here is they separated the chart. They made it more specific. And that's not true, because deficit is what they care about the most. Those two lines, they separated it. That's misleading on here too. They shouldn't do stuff like that. And number two is the black one, economy and jobs. Yeah, that is a huge issue. And the green is environment. I'm not sure with the environment if it's still 7.6% number or what, fourth. It's tied with healthcare. You're telling me environment and healthcare are tied for an important issue? I don't believe that at all. And as far as the environment is concerned, the flood season's coming soon. Is this where we're going to hear Stephen Guilbeault just start going nuts? If he's praying for a flood to happen so he can say, well, you got to pay more taxes. It's climate change. And it's almost reminds me of Galileo. When was that? Like 500 years ago in the church, him saying that the earth is not the center of the universe, the sun is. And then they, get rid of him. That's what it's almost like now, because we've only looked at the weather, the climate weather, and I'll have a look at that too in the last, 30 years or so. And then they predict going back 50 years ago or 100 years ago, and they say that, we need more taxes to increase it. Let's have a look. What is the climate change number? Let's look from the United Nations, the people that all our money ends up in the United Nations. Let's have a look. Refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Such a shift can be natural due to changes in the sun's activity and large volcanic eruptions. I don't ever hear Stephen Guilbeault talking about volcanic eruptions and long-term weather patterns. But since 1800, humans' activities have been a main driver of climate change, primarily due to burning fossil fuels. If you looked at the whole life cycle of the Earth, does this explain the biggest change in the world going from the ice age to warming up? When was that? 30,000 years ago? Isn't that more significant than putting greenhouse gases in the air that actually plants use? It goes on. Burning fossil fuels generates greenhouse gas emissions act like a blanket wrapping the earth, trapping the sun's heat and rising temperatures. I made a video about this too. The ozone layer in the 1990s and acid rain in the 80s and whatever it was, the cold ice freeze or something in the 80s or 70s, whenever that was. Isn't this just the same thing we're talking about? It's just more taxes that just come in. You think you're doing something, but nothing really comes out of it. They've always stopped building houses in flood belts, then stop doing that. The main greenhouse gases that are cause climate change include carbon dioxide and methane. These are used from gasoline for driving a car, or coal for heating our home, for example. You're telling me driving a car is the worst thing? Because what about everything we buy at Dollarama, Canadian Tire, all the stores that we buy, it's all made in China, and we all enjoy it. I enjoy it as well. Everything comes from China. They make everything for us. They are the ones that are doing it. We want it, and they provide it. And you tell me driving a car now is the biggest thing. If all the cars stopped in Canada, it wouldn't do anything for any of that. Humans are responsible for global warming. I'm not sure. Is this conceited or arrogant that you think, that humans think that they have that much control? Because the biggest climate change there ever was the Ice Age, and humans were not responsible for that. That's way worse than what it is now. And maybe there are extreme temperature differences. I think the only thing that's happened is that we have technology to record it, for example, in Ontario, there was fog this morning. Someone takes a picture of the fog and says, oh, my fog, it must be heating up. The earth is heating up faster than the sky, the air, and it's making fog. And you post it on the internet, or you get those warnings on your phone, alarm. Oh, climate, there's a severe weather warning. It's just a thunderstorm. They happen in Ontario anyways in the spring, and in the fall as the earth rotates around the sun and it tilts on the axle. It's happening. Thanks for tuning in to Canada-Wide News. Hold up, before you dash off. A little birdie tells me many of you are ghosting around here without joining the subscriber crew. Given Trudeau's keen interest in making the internet his own sandbox, hitting that subscribe button is your golden pass to always catching our broadcasts. Catch you on the flip side. Peace out.